If you want a comprehensive series of in-depth astrology information in an audiobook format, check out the 4-part Elements series by Stephen Forrest. I had the privilege of narrating it to audiobook, and it's a must for any astrology library. His complete life's work in a 4-volume set. The Book of Fire, Earth, Air, and Water. Direct links to all 4 books are on hightimelinebooks.com or available on Audible and Apple Books.
Boy, there is so much going on in the world right now, isn't there? Oh my gosh. Welcome to the great announcement day in the United States. I have no idea what this is all about. Hi everybody, Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Podcast, coming to you again from Route 66. I've had more fun finding these little old road stop hotels reminiscent of years ago, and you get different, they get different styles. The one the other day had pretty thin walls, and I was being quiet on Monday. Today, a wonderful hotel with thick walls and no neighbors. After today, I'm going to be shifting into homes with friends and family and then back on the road to take the rest of the trip in, and I'm not disclosing where I'm going. Not yet. All right, so yes, there's a big economic announcement in the United States today, and I have no idea where this is going, but I did want us to focus on Friday's energy. And it could correlate today because we are definitely in the orb of all of this action taking place on Friday. Could I borrow your attention for just a second to lock this into your mind, and then we'll talk about the interpretation of it. So the first day, this scattered all through the day on Friday. The first one is at just shy of 3 a.m., and they go all the way to 9 p.m. Eastern. Mercury conjoins the North Node. That's the first thing. Then we're dealing with the 2 malefic planets the rest of the day. But they are in favorable aspects, each one. So here are the technicals, then we'll break it down. Saturn sextiles Uranus. Mars sextiles Uranus. And then to wrap up the day, Mars trines Saturn. So sextiles and trines, the 2 favorable aspects with Mars and Saturn, the 2 malefic planets. And how these are all connected is exactly the way it was on Monday when we talked about there being a diamond. The kite kind of broke apart, at least that crossbeam, but we still have a big diamond in the sky along with a rectangle. Very positive aspects. However, there are a couple of things that concern me about this. First of all, Mars being in Cancer. Now, once Mars went retrograde, it tamed down in Cancer, and it hasn't popped back up, but the sun is now within 10 degrees. That's considered a conjunction. So the sun in a fire sign ruled by Mars is now squeezing in and will start to tighten up toward a conjunction with Mars. That exact conjunction does not take place until January. So for the next 9 months, the sun is going to be moving toward, getting stronger toward Mars. They will finally catch up with each other in Capricorn next January. That just brings an edge with it that's going to be building all through the year. The other consideration is that these 2 malefics are in positive aspects, but with Uranus. Now that can mean a couple of things. It can be the positive that Robert Glasscock talked about in our eclipse video that's on the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology Podcast YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. But also, when you talk about especially collective energy, even a positive aspect can present itself as a collective challenge. Now, one other thing to note is that these 2, Saturn and Mars, are in water signs, which are just not their favorite abode, not for either one of them. However, let's give credit where credit is due. They both have been behaving quite well, actually, in those water signs here of late. Another technical point, then we'll string all this together. It's happening at 24 degrees. Saturn is at 24 Pisces, Uranus is at 24 Taurus, Mars is at 24 Cancer. So that's 24 degrees, and in each case, about 55 minutes. Now remember, that total lunar eclipse back on March 14th was at 23 degrees and 55 minutes, just 1 degree away from this big major aspect cluster on Friday. So what can we do with this? Well, let's talk about us first, individually, because this is where we can lean more toward the positive side. Things are shifting, and Tracy Arnold has a great commentary on this that's going to be part of this week's weekly video. Be sure to catch that. It'll be out Saturday or Sunday, because she's going to be talking about this energetic shift. This also is encompassed and also highly influenced by Neptune now being in Aries. And if you think about Uranus being the planet of change and revolution, let's just say, and this is a revolutionary time because Neptune has not been in Aries since it left in 1875. And on the positive side, Mars represents action and Saturn represents structure and longevity. Cancer and Pisces, the two signs these fellows are in, represent intuition and guidance and emotional connection to source. So if you put all this together, the question from the sky today is, are you willing to make a pretty radical shift in your perception and your thinking? Not only that, but in the actions you are taking. Since 2012, 2013, and by the way, my Subconscious Mind Mastery podcast celebrated its 12th anniversary on Monday. But see, that podcast started, Subconscious Mind Mastery, started the first year that Neptune moved into Pisces. So what this is telling us now is that we are still going to draw from that internal well, that's Pisces and Cancer, but it's now up to us to start building things, Saturn, through action, Mars. And this aspect to Uranus is saying, are you and I willing to make the radical shift to see things differently now since Neptune is in Aries, the sign of action? And if we are, because all those positive aspects are so tightly strung together, there are positive outcomes for us if we will make that radical shift in our thinking. And I had mentioned Mercury was conjoining the North Node. I didn't bring that in because these are more prominent to me, but Mercury, about our thinking in new directions, the North Node. So yeah, there's your interpretation of this. And I'm not even going to go into the collective side because who can predict what's going on right now anyway? More surprises, Uranus. Let's just focus on what we can control, and that's you and me. So it's a new era. It's less of the kumbaya and more of the move your feet. It's not as much through inspiration as it now is going to come through action. Good old make pitches to the universe and then stay in touch with your intuition to see how those pitches are received. And to me, that's the very clear, subtle message in the sky this Friday. So we have a couple of days to build up toward it. That energy is going to be getting stronger, but it sure does give us a nice runway as we start to think differently and ultimately, you got it, act differently. So we have a lot to process from this one today, and I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening. Much love from Route 66.